Hello, welcome to today's webinar, JES Web, Raising the Bar and Your Bottom Line, presented by Ed Jaffe, Chief Technology Officer of Phoenix Software International. My name is Whitney Lingefelter, and on behalf of Share Headquarters, I would like to thank you for joining us today. Share is pleased to continue our webinar programming with this informative and educational event. Please note that presentation slides and recording will be available post-webcast at www.share.org. We encourage you to submit questions for today's speaker throughout the event via the Q&A box on your webinar toolbar, where they will be answered at the end of the presentation. There will be a survey after this webinar for you to complete. We thank you in advance for your feedback. Today's speaker is Ed Jaffe. Ed Jaffe joined Phoenix Software International in 1987. He became Manager of Research and Development in the mid-1990s and was named Chief Technology Officer in 2009. Ed co-manages the MVS program at Share and is recognized throughout the mainframe community as a subject matter expert and strong advocate for the Z Systems platform. Now I will turn the webcast over to today's presenter. Please go ahead, Ed.
Okay, thank you very much, Whitney. Let me go ahead and press this button, and hopefully everyone is seeing the cover slide here for the webinar later. Anyway, all right, so let's go ahead and get started. First of all, thank you all for attending. I wanted to start here by, here we go. Yeah, by giving a little bit of a background on Phoenix Software International. We've been in business since 1978, and we've been developing and supporting mainframe software that whole time. We also do have some PC products and products that run on some other platforms as well. But our bread and butter really is ZOS, ZVSC, and ZVM. Now we're a relatively small company. We have two major locations, LA and Tulsa. They DR back each other up, and we like to think we're responsive to our customer needs. They tell us that, so we're quite happy with that assessment. We are a privately held company, so we're not answering to shareholders with quarterly profit demands or anything like that. We definitely stay in touch with our code. The people have not retired that wrote any of this stuff, so that's always good. All of our developers are seasoned professionals living and working in the USA, the vast majority right here in Southern California, and no part of our operation is outsourced. We have customers from Fortune 1 all the way to Fortune 500, small businesses, and everything in between. Best practice security policies, that's very important these days, and we're right at the forefront of all that to make sure that our customers' information is secure. As a company, we focus on leveraging the latest hardware and software tech all the time. So, I mean, why do we do that instead of just sitting on our laurels and just collecting money? And the answers are we care about performance because the latest technology usually performs better. We also care about reducing costs for our platform, for our customers, and the latest tech usually does that. As she mentioned, I'm thought of as an advocate for ZOS, Z systems, but ZOS in particular, that's true. And leveraging the latest tech helps our platform compete against the alternatives and keeps our platform viable. So it's really important that all of us leverage the latest technology. And of course, it's just plain cool. We're kind of like bit twiddlers, geeks, nerds. from other products. Also, interface consistency is very, very important. But products that mature over time can, after a while, diverge in certain areas because it's hard to make, you don't want to maybe change something because you want to maintain upward compatibility, and you start to have to make some difficult choices. And we really focus very strongly on this and try to make sure that everything we do functions identically in similar contexts so that a new user can sit down and learn one screen, and then that means they know how they all work, basically, without having to learn a lot of special cases and things like that. This bullet over here about non-textual heuristics really does apply mostly to 3270 interface. But it is true that we know a lot about 3270, and we know how to use that and how to use it to its best advantage. But today we're going to focus on our JES Web offering. But this last one applies across the board, the principle of least astonishment. It's a beautiful design principle, dates back to the 1980s, and we always try to make sure that everything we do adheres to the principle of least astonishment. And for us, it is a matter of pride. I am the MBS program manager at Share, actually co-program manager, along with Skip Robinson, and you know, deeply involved in the mainframe community. Our customers are our friends, so if it wasn't great, it would be embarrassing. So I couldn't face people. Now, one of our big benefits is zip redirection. Zips are not new, but they are incredibly useful, and there are some really good reasons for why zip is so helpful. Number one, just anything that runs there essentially runs for free, as long as the software vendor does not count those cycles towards the capacity of the machine. IBM doesn't, we don't, most vendors don't. I can't speak for all vendors, but anyway, so that's a big reason. Also, if you move work to zip, you can make that work run better. For subcapacity machines, the zips run at full speed, so you get a great performance boost. Also, a lot of times zips are underutilized. So by moving something off a heavily utilized CP onto a underutilized zip, you actually get better cache utilization and things like that. And then, of course, anything you move there makes room back on the CP for other work. So it's a triple trifecta right there using zip. And this example I have over here on the right, now this is an ISPF user example, but it's very similar to what would happen even in batch or JES Web. And what you have is a situation where, in this case, a user sitting on an JES screen, they press enter, and ISPF gets control, of course, on a CP, because ISPF is not zip enabled. And then it reads the screen in, sets up its variables, whatever it needs to do, returns control back to JES, and JES immediately switches back to, pardon me, did not mean to do that, immediately switches back to the zip. And at that point, all that, the rest of it pretty much all runs on the zip. It's very infrequent that we have to come back to the CP. Even, by the way, for doing spool I/O and things of that nature. That's because we have our own I/O driver, proprietary code. We can launch I/O from the zip natively and not have to return back to CP mode to do I/O. And by the way, every time you switch back and forth between these two engines, you are incurring overhead, not just in the number of instructions you run, the path length through the dispatcher, but also cache hits and things of that nature. So you want to try to minimize that. And what we see, and then when we're done, it comes back, writes the screen out to ISPF, and then the user sees that. And what we've been able to see is upwards of 94% on our offloads, which we're really quite proud of, and that does apply to JES Web as well. I'm not going to dwell on this client-server request screen too much, except just to point out that the classic design model is to have however many requests you have, each one independently being made across a network of some kind. And then over on the remote side, you have some remote services that are satisfying these requests. And then each of them is independently gathering their own data, probably doing their own I/O or doing their own address space work or whatever it is they're doing, and then returning the data back. So in our case, because we really, really understand our data, we're able to highly optimize this so that we put a server in between right here, and that server can batch up these requests, send a single exchange across. Only one gathering of the data has to take place. Some sort of result set is updated and then sent back across the wire, only the changed pages to the original, and then all these requesters are opened up and allowed to then read the results of that result set. So what you end up seeing there is dramatic CPU savings, especially in larger installations where there are many, many concurrent requests. This is what our EJES solar system, we like to show this because what it shows is that EJES is, from the perspective of where you can run it, what you can do with it, hands down the most powerful product out there that does this sort of thing. Absolutely, there's no doubt about it. When we put this up in competitive situations, we put big X's through the parts that you know, whatever competitor we're up against can't do. So, but today we're just going to focus on this down here, JES Web, with that cute little kitty cat at the end. That's supposed to be Apache Tomcat right there. All right, so what is JES Web? Basically, it is the most visible and tangible result of our ZOS interface modernization strategy. The overview on the product is that it is a browser-based interface to EJES implemented in Java and JavaScript. Now, the Java runs on the mainframe, and the JavaScript is what runs in the browser. Now, originally, we were just going to create, you know, an interface that we hoped would be de facto for users that were uncomfortable navigating traditional 3270 interfaces. And we thought it would be simple. Their needs are very uncomplicated, and so it wasn't going to be necessarily the most full-featured interface. But we have gone way, way past that now. What we got turned out to be so good that we kept improving it, and we've got, you know, whole divisions using it, and people that, you know, you wouldn't think would be using it. We've got people that might consider themselves power users that find value in using JES Web. And it's really become quite a popular option. It's really excellent. And it does use a REST API, and that technology is intended to provide a framework that then all sorts of clients can sit on top of, the Eclipse plugins, mobile apps, other web services clients, you name it. Now, the history of this strategy, we embarked upon it in 2013 with the intent of supporting GUI interfaces for both install and end-user access. And we do have we have done some work in the install area. We're doing more work there as well. And JES Web, as I say, is the most visible and tangible result of this strategy. And of course, we've joined the ranks of numerous like-minded responsible vendors who have embraced these kinds of interfaces that are, you know, more easily navigated by the up-and-coming workforce, the millennials, or whatever you want to call them. And of course, we did it to try to help the issues that arise from an aging mainframe workforce and a potential ZOS skills gap. But you know, it's gone well beyond that. These aging workers love the JES Web as much as the others do, and you can get real value out of it. Now, we do use Java on the mainframe. Originally, Java on the mainframe sort of had a bad rap, and that's because it ran very, very slow. That's why it got a bad rap. It was well-deserved. But over time, IBM has really changed the game completely with Java by giving it very highly preferential treatment in the hardware and software design on Z and in customer terms and conditions. For example, zips, the fact that zips are inexpensive processors compared to CPs. They can be carried forward from machine to machine at no extra charge. You're not charged for the software on there and so forth. And the preferential treatment in terms of the hardware and software design has just made Java faster and faster and faster as time has gone on. And there's no reason to believe that this trend won't continue, and we believe that Java is a solid language and platform choice and really provides good investment protection for the foreseeable future. And by the way, IBM is putting their code on top of Java as well. All the ZOSMF stuff that you see is all running on on ZOS Java. Now, I was there in Seattle in March of 2015, and it was, I don't know if he'd ever said it before, it was the first time I ever heard any IBM executive, and this time it was Ross Maury, assert that Java runs better on Z than on any other platform in the world. And we absolutely agree with that, and things have only improved since that time, especially now with the Z13 and Java 8. So how is JES Web structured? Well, basically, it is a client-server model. You do have a component that sits in your browser that runs on your workstation, wherever that happens to be, and that's represented by the lower part here. And then the upper part is the mainframe side. Now, this is probably a backwards drawing from what the person who writes the browser code would do, but since I'm the mainframe guy, I put the mainframe at the top. So anyway, here we have our EJS base. That's the part we know that runs on zip there, and then you've got our API that anyone can code to. We use a stack model. There's no backdoors, no direct interfaces. You can do everything we can do. And if we need a new feature, we build it into this API so that it becomes available to you to take advantage of just like we can. So there's this API in there, then that's being called by a JNI layer here that's written in C++. That's Java native interface. That's how you make calls to procedural languages from Java. This part here is not exposed, but it doesn't need to be. Here, a Java API, which you can call if you have Java programs, and that is then being called by JES Web Service. Our REST API, our JES Web Service, uses that Java API to get information out of JES. So this is part of JES Web. That's the part that sits on the mainframe. Then on the browser, we have the native browser code. There's something called jQuery that we take advantage of. It allows you to, for JavaScript, to hide many of the differences between the various browsers that are out there. It's free. It's not anything that costs money, but it's really worth using because it does simplify your code so that you don't have to worry as much about, oh, is this Internet Explorer, or is it Firefox, or is it, whatever it is. And then that code then builds AJAX transactions, asynchronous JavaScript and XML, and it's basically, which is JSON requests and responses wrapped in HTML that goes up to this web service. Okay, so that's basically the structure right there. Now we have certain characteristics we'd like to talk about. The most important one is performance. And this really, it was me insisting that it had to be this way. I'm so sick and tired of this double standard where the mainframe has to have sub-second response, and if it doesn't, heads will roll. But then you'd go over to some GUI interface somewhere, and you got the little spinner just running for a few seconds. And everybody seemed fine with that double standard. Well, I'm not fine with that double standard, and I really wanted this to replicate, as closely as possible the experience that 3270 users have in terms of performance. And we have really done that. I mean, it's amazing. And these are some of the, refresh times in our environment. You can see what we're using here. And pretty standard stuff, I think, as far as our, workstations and the level of the code we're running and things like that. And these are great times. I mean, we're looking at, times here that, are right around 1/5 of a second and below. So, these are fantastic response times, and that's just exactly what we wanted, and that's what we've got. We don't want to have to fall back to some, lousy browser type find where you only have, just a simple string find or something like that. So we have all the full ISPF find capabilities. We're using an ultra-thin client model, fully virtualized, which is really where so much of this performance comes from. All the heavy lifting, sorting, filtering, searching, everything, all happens on the mainframe. The client is just there to provide this nice interface to the end user. We do use classic context menus. Ordinarily, you wouldn't think I'd have to say that because you would think that it's just, sort of a given. But actually, if you look at at least one of our competitors, they are not using classic context menus all the time, and that's just kind of a strange choice. But anyway, I like to say they make our job too easy. Time-oriented log browsers, I'll show you some of that, and I'll show you this download as text or PDF as well. And we do try to simplify, not complicate. Our original audience was supposed to be just the people that were uncomfortable with 3270. But you see, not everyone's doing this, and we have we have a competitor with a browsing experience that is really pretty hard to take, hard to really understand. It, if they divide everything up into pages of n lines each, and so you have, and then they download just one page of data. Why? Because they don't want to download all of it. If you had 1,000,000 lines, you don't want to download 1,000,000 lines because you'd be sitting there for an hour. But they're not fully virtualized like we are, so they have to download something, and they rely on the browser to do finds and scrolls and things like that. So what they do is they split it up. So if you had 1,000,000 lines and you put 2,000 lines in a page, now you got 500 pages. So once you have a page, then you're scrolling up and down in your browser, and when you hit the bottom of what the browser thinks you have, you're really only at the bottom of the page. And then if you want to go on to the next page, you could go on to the next or a previous page, or you can randomly select a page by number, but it's really complex. And, especially in the beginning, I was thinking, wow, consider the audience. I mean, this needs to be as easy as possible. Why make things harder than they need to be? Why not just do the obvious thing? And instead of going into all this writing, a picture's worth 1,000 words. So the bottom line is, well, in this case, it's only a 200,000 line output, but it's just exactly what you'd expect, right? The principle of least astonishment applies. That if you move that little slider up to the top, you're at the top of the job. If you move it down to the bottom, you're at the bottom of the job. And we're not surfacing to, of course, we break stuff up, but we're not surfacing any of that to the end user. We keep it all hidden as opposed to showing them what it looks like. All right, so at this point in time, I'm just going to switch over and just start doing a live demo. And a lot of people say, wow, you're going to do that? That's dangerous. If you want to see software fail, show it to your boss. And in this case, our customers are our boss. That is an old expression. It's very true. Whenever you think you've got something working, then you go show it to your boss, and that's when it fails. But I really believe in showing a live demo. I think our product shows very well, and I think it proves that it's not vaporware, it's the real deal. So what I'm going to do is I've got these two Firefox browsers here. Again, we use jQuery. It'll run in pretty much any browser you throw at it. And I'm going to log on here, JES Web JES 2 version. And then over here on the right, I'm going to do the same thing, JES 3 version, just so that no matter which JES you have, you can see that there's support there for it. Now, I could blow these up and make it full screen, but I want to show it smaller like this because I think this is more realistic. That ordinarily you would have some sort of IDE behind you, whether it's development environment, whether it's TSO you're using, whether you're using Eclipse, RDZ, which is really just Eclipse, or whatever you're using, and then you might have your email up, you might have other things. I mean, this is the way a modern desktop looks, and so your JES Web is not really going to take up your whole desktop. It's just one window that you use to help you deal with things. Now, as far as logon goes, we get the question all the time, well, what about ZOSMF? And so I want to quickly demo that. I'll switch over here to ZOSMF. I need to log in. All right. And then I've pre-opened up this tab where we've established this link. Anyone can do that. If you're a ZOS administrator, you can establish links. And so I've logged into ZOSMF, and now I click this link. And what do? I get JES Web in a tab here. What's great about that is if it was really a ZOSMF application, it would be locked into this one screen here. And you'd have tabs that could appear here, right? But basically, it's a very almost like a half duplex, one thing at a time type environment here, where you're picking and choosing just what you want to be looking at that moment. JES Web, as you can see, can be in multiple windows at once, multiple tabs at once. You could move this out onto a new window and completely decouple it from where you came from. So this is really our preferred mode of operation, and but I did want to at least demonstrate how you would get to it there from ZOSMF. All right, and of course that was a RACF SAF type login, and if it expires, you get all the support there for updating your password and so forth. Now, if you're brand new and you say, well, what about help? What do I do here? And this, let's see if I can get myself refocused here. Somehow I lost my pointer. Sorry about that. That is one of the downsides of a live demo. Okay, there we go. I switched over to another screen. I got two monitors there. Anyway, if you're new and you want to understand how to use this thing, there's a lot of great resources here. These are the 3270, just the EJES base references are all available. And then there's the EJES Web user guide itself. And in there, this is my favorite place to go, the keyboard map, because it has all of the shortcuts. And that's really what you want to learn if you want to become like a power user and able to use it. Those are keyboard shortcuts. Of course, you can use the mouse to your heart's content, but honestly, just like anything, if you want to be a power user, you really need to become an expert that way. Also, if you get error messages out of it, let's say I generate a command that's not known. Any message that comes out like this, if you click on that message ID, then it brings you right in to the help on that message. So it's nice that that's all integrated there. All right, now, so one of the things you may notice is that I jumped right to the status display initially when I logged in. There was no menu. There was no entry panel. What we do instead is we have this notion of a default display, and you can set that depending on what you'd prefer to have be your initial display when you go in. So if for whatever reason, let's say you wanted the log to be your initial display, then you would just do something like that. And then if you logged out and back in again, you would see hopefully I won't get any of these passwords wrong or divulge them. Okay, and then now it just jumps into the log as the initial. So that's what you get to customize there. As far as navigation is concerned, you can navigate by the commands if you're used to them that you know from the 3270 by literally by typing a semicolon, and it opens up this little window at the bottom. That semicolon we chose because that's the command separator in ISPF, and it kind of seems to have a nice analog here. And then if I were to type in, ST for status, then I'm jumping into the status display. That's what I'm used to doing. But again, we have this kind of pull down, and what's great about this is it lets me show you that every single display available in EJES to a 3270 user is also available to an EJES Web user. That's because our API is very powerful. This is all automated. We're not actually having to do any development work to add anything to here. It's just automatic by virtue of the fact that the API provides this data. So if we were to add a new display, that new display would just automatically show up and be in the correct, whichever one of these categories it needs to be in. So that's pretty cool stuff. It makes our design is really good there and makes this very extensible. We don't really have to do a lot of work to add anything new. And the same goes for these context menus as well. These are all completely dynamic based on information that's returned from the API. And that would be true if you were writing your own apps as well. As far as page navigation goes, you can go down to the end, you can go to the top, you can go, half down, full down, full page up and down. You can scroll over here on the right, drag or click or go one at a time. And then there's mouse wheel support. I don't know if you can tell that's what I'm doing, but that's what I'm doing. So, all the sorts of things that you'd expect. Now, one very cool thing that we do is we do some things that I don't think I've seen any other GUI type products really able to pull off. And that is, let's see if I sort this by records, descending. Okay, so I've got a 2 million line output here, and what I'm going to do is double click on that and I'm going to browse it. One of the cool things I wanted to make sure I got to is this attention support. We do attention support in 3270, and we thought there was no reason it ought not work in GUI, but I have to say I have not seen anybody else able to pull this off. But so if I do a find here, and this is something that can't be found, I can actually break this in mid-find just by oh. All right, well, it happened so fast. We just searched 2 million lines. That's how fast EJES is. Okay, we searched 2,595,000 lines. Again, if you took any other product and tried to search 2 million lines on spool, live on spool, I guarantee it would take a lot longer than that. All right, so that means I'm going to have to try to go very quickly and hit this super quick to make it. Nope, I couldn't get it. Let me try again. Okay, finally I stopped it at almost 1.6 million lines. So this thing really screams. Some of it got cached here after the first find. The first one was the full spool access. Now we have a lot of it that's been cached. Anyway, so we did it right there, and it works just like on our 3270 product. So if you hit it once, and you get this nice cooperative interrupt that stops whatever's happening. If it doesn't stop whatever's happening and you're having some kind of a problem, like a loop or something like that, and you hit the attention again, which in this case is the escape key, then we then kill the session, just as we would in 3270. We cause an ab end. And then you would, log back on. It would presumably take an SVC dump, and somebody would go diagnose it. But I just wanted to be able to take a moment out to demonstrate that, because there's a lot of cool technology here, and it's the kind of stuff. There's a whole lot of things that maybe I won't even get to, but you can rest assured we have put a lot of thought into this, and a lot of there's a lot of great support here. Now, as far as tabular selection goes, all the sort of things you'd expect to be there are, you can select a single line, you can select multiple lines with, like the control keys, same kind of stuff you see if you're like a Windows user. You can get a range of lines like that, by doing shift and whatnot. So and then whatever you do and whatever action you perform, you are performing that action on all of these resources that are appearing in this display right here. So if, for example, I wanted to do a display command, let me just see what happens. It's always risky to try anything, but all right, so it's issuing the commands. And capturing the output in this case. And there we go. Those are the results of the display commands against these particular resources. In this case, we did very simple $DS. They were not the long displays. I deliberately did the short to make sure it would all fit on this little screen. Otherwise, we'd have to go to the U-log to see the answers. Right? So, and then if when you have stuff selected, of course, anytime escape that undoes what you're doing. And if you have multiple things you've done, you could just keep iteratively hitting an escape, and it undoes things in sort of a last in first out kind of a manner. Now, if you're one of these power keyboard type users, you also have similar capabilities. You get this little thing here. You can put that there. I could come down here and click there. Do, let's say, shift. When I hit the space bar, that's the equivalent of click. Okay. And what's cool about that is it also is the equivalent of a double click. So if I come down here and I let me get my, there we go. If I want to double click, I can hit double space like that, and it'll open up that and like that on the keyboard. So there's great support for those who want to use keyboard, and also great support for those who want to use the mouse. Now, the line commands, I already briefly showed you some of that. Basically, let's see if I can get back to status here. You would right mouse for your pop-up menu, or if you're used to 3270 commands, you can use the colon. Let's suppose I'm on a line. You can use a colon right there, and now I'm going to issue a command against this guy. So if I do a D, this is a line command. Now I'm doing the EJES-D line command against that particular thing there. And so I use the colon, and again, there's an analog with ISPF where colons are used in PF key replacement stuff. So that seemed like a good analog for using a line command. So you can either use the mouse or the keyboard. You can see the results of the commands show up in that pop-up, and of course they show up in the U-log as well. If you, how do I get there? Yeah. So everything we've done has been recorded there in the U-log. All right, let me go back to status. I think I just go back. I did that as a replacement as opposed to a new tab. Let's see, we do have all the filtering capabilities you'd expect. So primary selection type criteria right here. Oh, you can enable or disable them anytime you want. So whatever filters you have in place, down here in your primary selection, right here I'm saying, oh, well, if it's owned by the user ID I logged on with, that's the default, then those are what I want to show. And I want to show every type of job. But if I want to quickly see other work, I can just toggle. And here I'm just pressing the P, which is analogous to the P-select shortcut in the 3270. But you could also get it from here if you're not, if you're not sure. You can enable primary selections or disable them. We also have metafilters, and same thing. Metafilters are really super powerful. You can do a lot with them. Let's say we want to find max comp equals to AB asterisk, or then we want to add one here, and I'll say again max comp is equal to JCL something. Okay, and we want to show only matching rows. So if I'm going to accept that, then what I'm seeing here are only the rows that have abends or JCL errors. Okay, and those can also be toggled. Well, obviously that could be toggled on and off. We have this M command or the toggle here, enable or disable metafilters. But when you're in there, you can also say, oh, I want to show only the matching rows, or I want to show only the non-matching rows, right? The inverse. So these are only the ones that didn't fail that way. Or, maybe you want to colorize the matching rows. So you're seeing everything in context, but you want something to draw your eye to it. So that's where you see this red popping in here for those that are matching. So there's a lot of capabilities there, and what's really cool, and this is where a lot of people really like EJES Web, even over the 3270 stuff, is this ability to manage several of these things. So I could actually add a new one where I'm doing something like, let's say, very simple, job name equals A, and I'll call it job A, and it's jobs that with A, okay? And then I accept that, and now if I say I want to use that guy, job A, that's what I'm using. And I can switch between them now. And so and this is all saved on the host. Everything that we're doing here, it's not saved in your browser. It's not tied to the workstation. It's tied to your user ID on the host. So job A, and then I can go back to the default set of metafilters and use those, and now I'm back to what I was doing before. So there's a lot of capability there. Column arrangements, a lot of capability there. All the sorts of things you'd expect from 3270, but what's cool here is you could drag and drop. So you can move columns up and down in the list. You can hide columns, by copying them out, like, over to this area here. And when you accept, you're updating your column list here. You can also just do it with your mouse. So if you decide you want to move this owner column over here, then you just do that. And boom, there it goes. And like I say, all this stuff is saved. So you can really arrange yourself till you're blue in the face. As far as overtypes go, any of these things that are green at the top are overtype capable. I could type tab, which is very similar to 3270, and put an overtype in. And these pink things are uncommitted overtypes. And once I hit enter, they're going to finally be committed, or I can go back to them and uncommit them one at a time, or hit the escape key on all of it and uncommit all of them. Or I can click in there and put them in, which is more of a PC type way of doing it, the mouse way. But anyhow, I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. And in theory, we issued the appropriate commands, and yeah, there we go. So those overtypes were accepted. Now, if we want to propagate overtypes to multiple lines, we can do that too. We can then select this line, select a range of lines, and then you see the overtypes are all being propagated through. So now you just type the overtype once, select all the various lines you want. They don't have to be contiguous like that, and you'll get that kind of thing. Let's see, what else? I got a couple notes on here. Tabular find. If you do that, it's very similar to that select. So if I say I want to find whatever starts with like ABS622, I'm searching for that string on any line, and there it is. And then I can find the next hit and the next hit and so forth. So, or previous, right, going back. And then what's great is, hey, I just did a find. I'm on this guy. Now I double click with my space bar or however I want to do it. Now I'm browsing that guy. So you got that. And then while you're in here, you also have some nice find capabilities in the browser. The very same capabilities you expect from EJES, picture strings, next, previous, word, chars, case sensitive, insensitive, all the kind of stuff you're used to seeing, it is all there. And if I look for like the string EJ, this gives you an example of what it looks like. You can see all the green, that's everything that's matching currently, and then the yellow is sort of like where your cursor is. It's very similar to what we do in the ISPF environment. You have label capabilities, so if you do a dot command and type in ABC, for example, that set a label right there, and then I can go wherever. Let's say I scroll somewhere else, and then if I say locate and I go back to ABC, I'm right back to where that ABC is. So all those sorts of capabilities are there. You can locate by line number, labels, by time if you're on the log, things like that. I'll briefly demonstrate the log. So I'm here and I say, well, what happened this morning at 5 o'clock? So I can put in like 5 o'clock. And it takes me back to 5 o'clock. So, those sorts of things are all expected. They're all in the 3270 interface, and they're all here. As far as like multiple data sets, same thing. This is probably in any number of data sets, and as I'm doing this, I'm literally hitting the N key and scrolling from one data set to the next. So I can jump ahead, I can jump back, I can limit myself just to one data set or expand back out to the whole thing. Of course, you have the individual data set type display. Let's see if I can find one that I know. Let me go back to the top here. Yeah, this guy should have multiple data sets, so data set status should show me multiples. All right, yeah, so that's the kind of thing. You can get that, or you can be browsing it all at once. System commands, I already demoed some of that. I'll do it again, but we've seen it, several times. But here's one with a slash. So I just literally typed in slash and got to see this system command right there, and the response right there right on my browser. And again, it's also in the U-log. Any of these fields that open up, you can type the up and down arrows, and you'll get previous things. So there's DT again. Now, if I decided to type, another command, display ASM, and it does that. Now, if I do the slash and I go up, there's display ASM. I can go up and down through my list. So there's support for remembering. And again, all of that, I think it remembers 20. 20 of them are remembered on the host. Let's see, what else might I want to show you? Yeah. So a lot of times you might want to actually resubmit a job, and one of the ways you could do it, now you can see there's a lot of capabilities here for other things, browse control blocks and stuff. I'll just quickly demo one of those right here. So many things I'm not going to go through. I just kind of want to give you a flavor for it. But if you need to resubmit this job, let me find one that's probably safer to resubmit. Let me see if we have a job called ListCat or something like that. I'm afraid to submit a job that may actually do something. Okay, so there's a job called ListCat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, hey, I want to browse his JCL. And this does not look like his JCL. Maybe I needed to select him first. I'll make a note of that because that seemed counterintuitive to me, right? The principle of least astonishment. There's the danger of doing demos. But anyway, if that can be addressed, it will be. All right, so down here, let's see if it works now. No, it's the same thing. All right, let me try it over here. I'm really surprised that that I was not able to get the job I was looking at to come up as Browse JCL. I've seen this work. I wanted to demo it. I did not test it before we got here. So, all right. You know, that one job may have been sent over from NJE. It's possible, something like that. I'll check into it. And so maybe it's not really, maybe it doesn't really have the input. It may not be a bug, but if it is, we'll fix that. So anyway, what you can do here is you can come in here and actually edit this job. So let's say I want to, I don't know, call this listing X. You know, no, that's probably a bad change. How about set max CC equals 4? I'll do that. And then go ahead and submit. And maybe I don't want this second. Maybe I don't want this second part. All I want is just the delete part. That way, I don't have to worry too much about doing anything. So anyway, there it goes. So now the job was submitted with that job ID. So basically, what you do is you can go in there, edit the job, or not. Just edit it. You may not need to make any changes. Then resubmit it. And when you resubmit it, you have the option of submitting through an internal reader or FTP. FTP was our original, and so we did not remove that. But we definitely recommend using the internal reader. It's actually a better interface and more direct into JES. All right, and the last thing I sort of wanted to get to here is this download capability. Let's see. If I come down here to something reasonably sized, so we're not waiting forever, here's a received job that what I could do with it. Obviously, when we say extract in EJES, we're talking about copying to some mainframe resource. And so we can extract to DASD, which you kind of expect we could. You can put in a data set name or actually bring up a list based on a mask that you put in here of existing data sets if you want to overlay one. And put in this information, or it'll default to things like that. You can also extract to sysout or even to Unix file system. But we also have this download, and download, that really applies just to moving something not on the mainframe but back to your workstation. So you can download it as text, you can download as PDF. When you do these things, you're given a whole bunch of choices about things you want to do. I'm just going to take the defaults here because those are really the easiest for me to deal with. And what I'm doing here is I'm creating real-time PDF. And then I go into, I'm going to use that Adobe Acrobat Reader to look at it. And what you see is the output. And what it's doing is it's honoring the carriage control, the actual carriage control that was in this job between data sets, within a data set, whatever. But it's so all the host carriage controls being honored, whether it's ANSI or machine carriage controls, and it has put it into this PDF. And now you can take this PDF and do whatever the heck you want with it, right? Email it to somebody, or put it in a directory, or whatever it is you want to do. So you have those kinds of capabilities right there. It could be either text or PDF. And we actually had one customer that was looking for a solution to do ad hoc PDF creation off spool. And when they saw that we could do it, they they became a customer of ours, and now all of their users are using JES Web exclusively for all their output needs, not just for that particular feature, because it is so robust and feature rich. Anyway, so that's about it. I don't want to go on and on, so I'm going to go back to my original presentation here, and hopefully if I hit enter, yeah, this is my question and answer page. That's our address and email and website and so forth. And so if there are questions that came in that have been saved up till the end, I think now would be a great time for me to try to address them.
Okay, Ed, one question is there a reason why you chose Tomcat over IBM's ZOS management facility?
Well, hopefully I alluded to some of that where the ZOS, if you use something under ZOS-MF, first of all, ZOS-MF is a closed environment. You can't actually, create your own apps there. You can create your own apps and license Liberty, WebSphere Liberty from IBM, but that's a without support type license, and we really didn't want to engage in anything like that. Tomcat is very fast. It's free, and so we pass on that freeness to the consumer. It's secure. I mean, we're running the latest versions, and there are no vulnerabilities there and that sort of thing. We don't have an aversion to using Liberty at all. What you would do, though, is it would not really be under ZOS-MF, because ZOS-MF is really reserved only for IBM. So what you would do is you would run your own copy of Liberty, bring up your own code there, and then you would link to it from the regular ZOS-MF interface, and it would appear to be seamless, but you would still have another server in the background. But anyway, it's just as convenient. I mean, Tomcat's a great interface. It does everything we need. It runs super fast. And when we first started messing around with this stuff, the WebSphere was extremely slow. It was when they were still using WAS OEM and before Liberty was even really out there. So, that kind of drove our technology choice early on. But we still have good reasons for staying with Tomcat. But if honestly, I'll tell you that if somebody has a legitimate business reason where they feel that they really need us to be running under Liberty and not under Tomcat, we could certainly consider doing that, because honestly, the container is not as important as the app. It would not be that hard for us to run under Liberty instead of under Tomcat. But you have to keep in mind this proviso of the support, and we still want to kind of try to work that out with IBM, where we don't want to get into a situation where something's broken in Liberty, but they won't fix it because because it's a free license. So I don't know. Honestly, whoever you are, if you really have a strong need for Liberty, let us know, and we'll do more work in investigating this and try to come to some sort of a conclusion.
Thanks, Ed. We do have another question. Dennis Schaefer asked, you mentioned using JES under RDZ. Can you describe how that interface works?
Right. So RDZ is really Eclipse-based, and I have to apologize. I just upgraded my machine here, and I have not installed Eclipse yet, or I'd jump into it real quick and try to show you. But Eclipse has a default browser in it, and so if you want to have, you have a couple of options. One is to run JES Web in its own browser right beside Eclipse. So you'd have Eclipse, here, and you'd have JES Web running here. But also, if you look at Eclipse, there's a default browser in Eclipse, and guess what? JES Web runs there too. So you can bring up JES Web right there in Eclipse in the default browser. Now, we would like to also create an Eclipse plugin, and we think there could be value there. we ask customers to let us know if we ask them to try using it in the default browser in Eclipse and see if that provides them all the capability that they need. And if they detect that there's some capability they think they could get from a real plugin as opposed to running in the default browser in Eclipse, to let us know. So we've made that request now of about a half dozen customers that we know are using JES Web in combination with Eclipse, and they've not told us yet that they need an actual plugin. But it is on our list, and we'll happily work on that. But we need a customer to tell us why that's important to them. And so far, we haven't really gotten that out of them. So, Randy, if you're the first one, please be that one and let us know, and we will we'll start working on that right away.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ed. We have another question, a follow-up question from Dennis. Have you considered implementing regular expressions in your find commands?
Okay, sorry, I said Randy. That was Dennis. Actually, yes, we have that on a list of on a to-do list. That is something that you can get with ISPF Edit these days and browse. And we do recognize the value in regular expressions. We started working on that at one time, but then some other things kind of got in our way. Honestly, that would be a change to the JES base and not just the JES Web. And then when you did a find right here, you would just, whatever it is that you do to make it a regular expression would be something you would be typing in right there. So yeah, that is on our to-do list, and I'm glad you asked that question because, frankly, that had sort of faded from my radar, and now you just brought it sort of back to the top of the radar a little bit. So maybe we'll look at trying to get that done sooner rather than later. So yeah, thanks for the question.
Great, thanks, Ed. We do have one more minute for one last question. By running JES Web, will that offload any ZOS resources?
Okay, well, it offloads resources that would, if something would have run in a CP and you're able to now run it in a zip. If you're running some other product, not JES, and you switch to running JES, and that other product is doing its work on a CP, right there is a form of offload. You're moving cycles from the expensive engine onto an inexpensive engine, the zip. Now, as far as offloading off the mainframe and onto the workstation, the answer there really has to be no, because part of what makes our product so fast and so usable is the fact that we don't do that. We put all the heavy lifting back on the mainframe where it belongs. It's data co-located. I mean, suppose you wanted to sort this display, right? I'm sorting by records here. Suppose I reverse it there, right? All that sorting happened on the mainframe because that's where the data is. If I wanted to do that same sort on the workstation, I would literally have to copy every record, every byte of all this data back down to the mainframe. And by the way, if you're looking at hundreds of thousands of jobs, that could take a while. And then once it gets there, then sort it. So no, we don't offload that kind of work at all. But we do offer the opportunity to move work and redirect it from CPs onto zips.
Great, thanks, Ed. So that concludes today's webcast. We'd like to thank everyone, especially Ed and the Phoenix Software team, for joining the event today. This feature will soon be available on the SHARE website at www.share.org. Please remember to complete the survey that will populate after GoToWebinar is closed. So thanks again for attending today's webinar, and we look forward to seeing you at SHARE San Jose March 5th through 10th.
All right, and thanks for having me.
Thank you.